Hey, this is Flash Advanced Dialogue 1. So we're going to be doing a monologue sequence. And a monologue is just a scene with one character in it. So by now you should have a very clear idea of how things work. You should use a storyboard either in this file or there's a storyboard included in this file that you can draw on top of. Or you can download and print out storyboard sheets from the site. Sketch out a rough plan for your main actions and poses that will go with the dialogue. You can just write the dialogue into the storyboard sheets. And keep in mind to avoid cliche or overused poses. And also avoid twinning in your poses. Think of good poses that convey what the character is thinking. And remember your C and S curves in your poses and silhouettes. Also think about the variation of speed in your movement. You want a good contrast between fast and slow movement. And above all, remember to incorporate all the animation principles where appropriate. Be sure to block out all your animation first and continue to play it to see the progression as you set new poses. So we're going to animate lip sync first. The basic workflow is to animate the lip sync first, then do the main body positions, and then do the facial animation at the end. Alright, so this is the file that you guys are going to get here. So the shot comp, inside we have a storyboard where I've already sketched out some poses. When we go to the symbol layer where we have all the character's body parts, you'll see at the bottom here that there's a storyboard layer. And then on top of that is a layer for the drawings, which is the layer where you will do all the drawings for your poses as you plan out your work. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is lip sync. I've pretty much said everything I wanted to say about lip sync in that class, so we won't go through all the lip sync right now. We won't go through all of it, but you guys definitely will animate the lip sync in your scene. Alright, so let's listen to the audio file that we've included. It's from Anchorman with Will Ferrell. Okay, here it goes.
You pooped in the refrigerator, and you ate the whole wheel of cheese? How'd you do that? Actually, I'm not even mad. It's amazing.
So Will Ferrell's character is responding, he's reacting to a dog in the room who apparently pooped in the refrigerator and ate a whole wheel of cheese. And he's impressed. So it's a nice comical piece, and we can have some fun with that. So we'll do lip sync first. I'm not going to go through all of it like I said. You can refer back to acting 4, which is lip sync and accents, where I get into lip sync more in depth and you plan out your lip sync. Alright, so here's a file where I animated the lip sync for this project, and here it is.
You pooped in the refrigerator, and you ate the whole wheel of cheese? How'd you do that? Actually, I'm not even mad. It's amazing.
Okay, so you'll notice I switched to the happy mouths at the end. I use the happy mouths for, that's amazing.
Actually, I'm not even mad. It's amazing.
Spin it any way you like. The whole thing can be happy, but you don't have to copy what I did here. In fact, you don't even have to use this audio clip if you don't want to. You can use a completely different audio clip and a different character. The point of this exercise is to do a monologue sequence, full body character in a scene, an 8 to 10 second audio clip. That's the criteria. Alright, now I have this blocked out as well. We won't go through all the blocking as we've done this extensively in previous classes, but I'll show you what the blocking that I've done. Alright, so first we'll take a look at the storyboard. Alright, so we'll just zoom into this and take a look. So I just sketched it in. You can see here, we'll go down to the bottom 2 layers. The bottom layer is the actual storyboard. It's just line and fill. And the board drawings layer is where I actually did the drawings. I used this tablet to do this. If you have a Cintiq or a tablet, it's much easier to use a light pen to actually draw rather than using the mouse. But if you don't have a Cintiq or a tablet, then go to the site and print out the board sheets that we have available there. Very roughly, just sketch out the character's poses like I've done here. So you can see here I wrote in some of the dialogue. You pooped in the refrigerator, and I have him sort of hunched down with his hands on his knees as if he's looking at a dog in the room over here. And you ate the whole, and then I have him straighten up. And you ate the whole wheel of cheese. So I just had him a gesture as if the wheel of cheese is in another part of the room. How'd you do that? And then I had him grab the back of his head like he's thinking. Again, you want nice silhouetted poses. And then he gestures for, I'm not even mad. That's amazing. And then he puts his hand on his hip for that's amazing. And you definitely want to hit all or most of these main poses on the vowels of the most pronounced dialogue. Now let's take a look at the posing, or the actual animation that I did that corresponds with this plan.
You pooped in the refrigerator, and you ate the whole wheel of cheese? How'd you do that? Actually, I'm not even mad. It's amazing.
Okay. So here's a rendered video of it. And you'll notice that the lip sync is off. And that's because when I blocked out this animation, I shifted some of these these moves around a little bit, these keys. And again, another reminder of when we have animation playing inside a cymbal, there's animation playing inside this head cymbal. You have to make sure that for every keyframe that we have on the head, you check the frame number. So for frame 97, then select the head cymbal and make sure that it's the same over here. And you can see that for this keyframe on the head on frame 97 is not the same as the instance over here. It's showing 85, so that really should be 87. So I just left it like that, just as a reminder to you that after you've blocked, if you start shifting keys around, which you probably will do to adjust your timing, you'll have to go through and just fix all these numbers here for the head cymbal. So again, the lip sync is off in this example, but this just shows my the blocking for the body.
You pooped in the refrigerator, and you ate the whole wheel of cheese. How'd you do that? Actually, I'm not even mad. It's amazing.
So I started off with this pose, as if he's looking at a dog over here. The dog's obviously barking, and it's almost like he's interpreting what he's saying. So for the first move, so you pooped. So the O in pooped, it would be the vowel that you would emphasize, that you would pose on. So it's really more like I just really accented on that because he stays in this main position with his hands on his knees. Also note the S curve in this pose. So I just had him anticipate on you, and then on pooped, I gave him an accent and gave him a bit of a stretch on his head, and I think his whole body here stretches out a bit. And then he settles. So anticipation, overshoot, and settle. And then I gave him a small move here, even though there's no dialogue. We'll do a little eye dart towards screen right and just have him look over to the side just to think about it for a minute.
You pooped in the refrigerator. And?
So he's surprised about the cheese. So on and, I had him come up.
And you ate.
But I had him anticipate first. He anticipates. Note the bend in the knees. You really want to get the knees bent there as he anticipates. And he comes straight up. And again, note the C curve in this pose. When we start to refine this, we'll probably settle into this upright pose. Alright, so this is my next main pose. I posed it right on the O in a hole, right on that vowel. But he anticipates first, right here. That's the anticipation pose. The arms come forward a little bit, and then extreme pose with the arms back on hole. You want to make sure these extreme poses are as appealing as possible because your character will hold in those poses for quite a while. So I had him come back on the E in cheese. Little anticipation, and then back to his other pose, the C curve pose. Alright, so for this next move, I just brought his arm out, just a little gesture with the right arm on how. He's saying, how'd you do that?
How'd you do that?
So it's going to be a continuous move. This the right arm comes out for a gesture, and it also kind of doubles as an anticipation for this pose, this sort of wondering pose. So you can see he switches from a C curve, this C curve, into the opposite C curve.
Actually, I'm not even mad.
And then he kind of says, "That's actually I'm not even mad." So it's like he's starting to say that's actually something, but then he just changes it and says, "I do that a lot too," as you noticed. My mouth's moving faster than my mind, so I give him a little accent when he starts to say this actually, and then he changes his mind to saying, "I'm not even mad."
Actually, I'm not even mad.
Notice I posed them right on the A in mad, right on the vowel. So I give him an anticipation here, just a small anticipation back. Notice I move the arm too. You want to avoid having the character look too stiff. So even when you accent or do a small movement for an anticipation or an accent, you want to move most of the parts. And then I'm going to then this anticipation, or sorry, this main pose for mad. You can see it over here. And then he says, "That's amazing." And you can see I got that last pose here too. And then I anticipated that as well. So now we'll refine this. So one little note about refining, I know in some of the previous classes I put in some of the cushioning at the refining stage, but if you want to, you really can. If you want to do a really good blocking pass and get it really close to being finished, you can add your cushioning and easing in with your blocking. I just save it for it's my preference to save it for the refining stage. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is just tween everything. Alright, so I got everything tweened. Let's watch it and see what we came out with.
You pooped in the refrigerator. And you ate a whole wheel of cheese? How'd you do that? It's actually, I'm not even mad. It's amazing.
Okay, so that doesn't look too bad actually. We're going to make some fine adjustments. When we're ready to finalize it, then I'll go through and fix the lip sync. Okay, so let's start with the first move.
You pooped in the refrigerator.
So now I'm thinking about the contrast between fast and slow movements. We're going to have some movements fast and some movements slower, and where it's appropriate to do so. So I think that we can tighten this up a little bit.
You pooped in the refrigerator.
Give this movement a little bit more energy.
You pooped in the refrigerator.
So for the antic and pooped, I think we can have him pop up a little faster.
You pooped in the refrigerator.
And actually we can have him anticipate a little slower. So I'm going to bring this first pose back a little bit, just to create more in-betweens so that the movement is slower. Bring it back 2 frames. Hopefully it doesn't cause any breakage in the joints. And there's a nice ease there. This is a hold. Okay, so we'll do that in 1 frame. Between this pose and this pose, it's where he pops up into his overshoot. Let's have that happen a little quicker. Alright, so we'll shift that over to the right a little bit, or to the left. Okay, so now there's no in-betweens between our anticipation pose and the overshoot. Let's see how that looks.
You pooped in the refrigerator.
I'm just going to undo that change, take another look at it.
You pooped in the refrigerator.
Actually, I think I like it better with 2 frames, so we're going to leave it like that. And I think we can actually increase the amount of in-betweens for our settle. So we'll slide this last pose over a little bit. Also remember to offset some of the parts of his body. I don't think it's necessary here, but I think what we can do is use Flash's ease function for this settle. And we'll go to the properties, increase it to 100. Also what we could do here, in this area where he goes into his anticipation pose, we can put another ease favoring the first pose. So we'll select the row of in-betweens there, and we'll ease it the other way to minus 100. Just that means he's going to start slow. So let's see how that looks now.
You pooped in the refrigerator. You pooped in the refrigerator.
Okay, now I can see his neck here is coming apart from his head. Let's go up to his head on the top. This lip sync for the ooh sound, it's making his jaw come away from his head. So what we're going to do is just bring his head back a little bit here. We'll have to do it here as well. Alright, so we're going to have to set an extra key here in the in-betweens. So the head's swimming a little bit, we want to try to avoid that. Alright, so this is a good opportunity to add a little bit of overlap. Let's see, I'm just going to scrub through again and just think about where I can put the overlap. As he starts to rise, so this is the overshoot pose. So right in the center here, let's see if we can just overlap his head a little bit, or give it a bit of drag anyway. And then on the overshoot pose, we're going to just exaggerate it a little more. And let's see if we can offset his head a bit by dragging this last keyframe on his head out a little bit. About 3 or 4 frames, maybe 5 frames past the rest of the body.
You pooped in the refrigerator. You pooped in the refrigerator.
Okay, that's looking okay. Okay, now the only thing I want to fix on here is the hand. If you watch that left hand, as I scrub through this move, just sort of swims on the pants a little bit. Actually, let's fix this one first because it's a little easier. Rotate that hand out a little bit just so it stays on the leg. We'll go to each pose that he's down like that and just fix the hand. So we play that now.
You pooped in the refrigerator.
Now let's move on to the second move. Okay, now we changed the position for this head, so now it pops over here. So we're just going to copy this head, copy this keyframe on that head to the beginning of this next move, and paste it. And we lost the in-between. We'll re-classic tween that. So I think that's okay. I'm just going to put a bit of an ease on this. So on and, he's going to rise up. And we don't have any breakage in the joints. That's pretty good. A little bit of an issue here. Okay, so we're going to settle into this. Let's do a 6-frame settle, because it's a pretty big move. Select the entire body. Bring the pivot point down to the heel. And just give him a bit of a skew. And then we'll also bend some of his body parts as well. We'll just bend him at the torso a little bit. That's going to be our ease right there. So let's tween that now. See how that works. Create a classic tween, and while we have that row selected, we'll use Flash's ease function on in the properties. And let's just play that and see how that worked out. Okay, so the ease looks pretty good. Let's add some drag here. Maybe with the head. We can probably offset the head a little as well. I'll create a new keyframe when he's on the way up, and I'll give it more drag there. So our arms are twinning. I'm going to delay this arm a little bit. And just make it a little different from the other arm. We're going to offset it and just have it delay a little bit on the settle by 3 frames. So we're going to delay that upper arm as well. Did we delay the head? No. We can delay the head as well. Let's see how that works out. Whoops. Okay, so we delay the head, but what we're going to have to do is set a key here that's in line with the rest of the main posing. Because what happens is the head's delayed, but it has to stay attached to the neck as well. So we're just going to move it back a little bit. So I'm just looking at this. It'd be nice for this move to have the right foot. This right foot could come up. Let's just try this. We're just going to make some adjustments on this pose. We'll just see how that works out. I think that works out okay. That way everything's not moving at the same time, and it looks better with the shift in his shift in weight and balance as well. Alright, so let's move on to the next move. The hole. So let's overshoot this hand a little. It's a quick movement. This happens in 2 frames. So it calls for an overshoot. So let's go about 5 frames down the timeline and set a row of keys. And this will be our settling pose. And then we'll overshoot this pose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to settle the whole body, overshoot that arm and the head. So we'll bring that pivot down to the heel. I'm going to bring this in a little bit so it settles into this. But we're going to overshoot this head for whole. So we'll overshoot that arm a little bit on the overshoot pose. So there's a nice overshoot there, but the rest of the body settles in. Let's just tween that and see how that works out. Oh, the overshoot in the arm looks good. And the head. Okay, so I want to get that foot stepping a little bit better. So on the anticipation pose, we can bring that leg up. Okay, so he really looks unbalanced here, like he's going to tip back. So let's actually bring that leg back a little bit, just to help with the balance. You know what we'll do is we'll just lean him forward a little bit, and that'll help with the balance as well. So we really want to get this heel underneath his neck, just so his line of gravity is not off. Let's see how that looks. Looks alright. We can actually anticipate this arm a little bit more, because that's a pretty big move, so that would call for a bigger anticipation. So let's bring that arm forward a little bit more, and we can even break the wrist here. Okay, so I'm a little concerned about this hand. You can see the popping when the hand swaps cymbals, so let's take a look at it. Okay, so what we can do with that is just have this hand change a little earlier. So let's go to the hand symbol, and we can have it change in the middle here. So we'll set a key. We'll copy this hand. What hand is it? If we click on it, it's hand number 14. You can see it here. So what we can do is just go to this new keyframe that we set in between, click on it, change it to 14. Sometimes I copy and paste it over, but so let's take a look. Anticipation. Alright, so let's rotate that a little bit, just so it's moving while it switches. And we can rotate this one back a little bit too, just to help it move a little bit faster. So now we can fix this left arm here. So the hand's disappearing because the cymbal is flipping. So we're going to have this hand, we're going to do the same thing with this hand. We're going to have it switch in mid-motion. So as it's going through this arcing motion, we're going to have the hand switch in the middle here. So let's grab this hand, let's set a key in the middle, right in between those two frames, which is right where we want the hand to switch. And we're going to have it switch to this new hand, which is hand number 8 on this new keyframe. And actually, you know what? Because it's flipped like that, we'll do the copy method here. So we'll copy this one, copy this hand to the center, paste, and of course it's going to go back to where we copied it from. And this may not work out because it looks like his arm's twisted now. So what we can do is just use a different hand. So we have the back of the hand with the thumb facing in toward the center of his body, and then it's got to turn. So what we need to do is find a hand where the thumb is facing us. So let's scroll through the hands. So this hand would probably work out fine. So now we have a nice hand that's turning. That's something we can do if we have the right hands. Oh, we have the butts cracking here, so let's fix that. So we'll just make that step a little higher. Alright, so let's check that move out now. We'll just play that. Now we want to think about, can we offset anything? Can we add any more overlap anywhere? It's part of the final refining stage. And we can refine. Let's just give this hand a bit of an overlap. I know we put this new pose in here. Give it some drag. So that looks a little bit better. Okay, so there's more we can do here. We can settle this arm a little bit better by moving it out. Instead of moving it in on the settle pose, we'll move it out on the pose before, on the extreme pose. So let's just move it away from the body a little bit, and then it'll settle on the next pose. Alright, so let's take a look at this movement. Alright, so let's just settle this pose a little bit. I'm going to give it a good 6-frame settle. Alright, so instead of bringing this pose out, I'm going to bring our extreme pose back in. Alright, so I'll just skew that back a little bit. And also I want to get it a little closer to this pose. So we're going to maybe move this arm a tiny bit, and we'll bring this arm out a little bit more, just so it's maybe not half, but maybe a third of the way between this and this. So we'll turn our onion skinning on so we can see what we're doing. And we're just going to be working with the upper body here, so let's bring this arm out just a little. And we can probably just do it with the lower arm, because this is just a settle pose, so we don't want it to be too far away. And maybe we can even just use the hand here and the head. So I'm going to tween this now. See how that looks?
Wheel of cheese? Wheel of cheese?
And his center of gravity looks a little off. Looks like he should fall back here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to adjust this pose. I'm just going to use the skewing just to quickly fix this. That looks a little better, so he won't fall over. We're going to have to copy that. We'll just do it now. I'll copy it over here. Otherwise it'll pop. Alright, so let's have this arm offset, and we'll have it delay a little bit. Okay. You know what, let's not do it this way by sliding the keys. Let's keep everything neat and tidy. We'll set a whole another row of keys, and we'll go to the previous pose, and we'll bring the arm out. Between that, give the head a bit of a drag, and we'll move it in just a little bit here for this last frame. So let's fix this arm, this hand. We're gonna have to do probably the same thing we did last time. We'll set a key in the center, and then we'll copy one of these hands. Doesn't matter, I think, in this point. We'll copy one of these hands, use that same hand we did before. Let's just go over that last pose. Copy this hand over to this hand, just to in between that pose, and we'll put it back where it belongs here. but it's on the way back the other way, so we'll drag it the other way. This arm is on the way back to his side, and we'll get a nice, gives us a nice hand turn here, just like we did before, and the arc is there as well.
Wheel of cheese? Wheel of cheese?
Okay, so we have a nice settle on that arm now.
Wheel of cheese? Wheel of cheese?
Okay, so now this hand's popping, just like it was in the last move, so let's fix this. We'll swap the hand in the middle of a quicker motion. Okay, so first, let's get the hand to swap. So we'll set a key in between. And we should switch it to this hand. So we'll copy the frame and paste it in the middle. Let's get that upper body closer. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll move this hand closer to what it was in the previous pose. So it's up a little higher here. And we'll just bring this hand up a little higher as well, just so it matches this hand a little better. And then for the next key, that actually looks better already. On this anticipation, we'll bring this hand up a little bit. We want to keep this hand moving while it's swapping. So right when the hand switches cymbals, it moves quite a bit. There's a big space there. Okay, so for the next move,
Actually, I'm not even. How'd you do that? How'd you do that?
so we see that we have the hand swap cymbals again. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have it swap in the middle of this movement. So what we're going to do is we're going to give it a bit of drag. We'll set a key, give it some drag, and then we'll swap it. We'll set another key, and we'll copy this new hand, copy frames, we'll copy it to the middle, paste. So what we could do is we can get this hand to be a little bit closer to the next one. So let's turn on our onion skinning for a moment. So we'll just skew it over. You can see the fingertip of the next one here. And let's go to the next one and skew that back to match the other one just a little bit. Turn this off. Let's see how that worked out. Yeah, and what we could also do is put another hand in there if we have it. Alright, so let's give this a bit of a settle here. Just a bit of a moving hold is what it is. Okay, so we should overshoot this movement. It's pretty quick. So I'll give it just about 3 frames to settle. And we'll overshoot this a little. Overshoot this extreme pose. Or I should say our main key pose. So we'll use a little bit of skewing. And we'll rotate the head a little. Maybe we'll get that arm up a little as well. And remember, you don't want this character to look stiff with his left arm, so we'll overshoot that left arm as well. So let's tween that. We're no doubt going to have to fix that arm. Thankfully, it's only 1 frame. So which parts are the problem parts? It's the forearm and the hand. There they are. So let's just set a key on these. Fix the forearm first. Let's just move the hand out of the way. Give that a bit of foreshortening, just so it looks like it's coming at us a little bit. And we'll drag the hand because it's on its way up.
How'd you do that? How'd you do that? How'd you do
I want to give this arm, give this moving hold with the arm, with the right arm just out gesturing. Let's give it a little bit of movement. Let's see how that looks. There we go. That looks better.
How'd you do that?
So actually, this arm can have a bit of drag when he goes back to this opposite seeker pose. Okay, so we'll set a key in between. We'll just do the wrist here. Let's see how that works out.
How'd you do that? How'd you do that?
Okay, so let's give this settle a little bit more in betweens by dragging it out. And we'll use Flash to use the ease function in Flash, like we've done before.
How'd you do that? Actually, I'm not even. How'd you do that?
So that smoothens out the end of that movement a little bit better. Alright, let's go to the next move. It's just an accent.
Actually, I'm not even mad. Actually, I'm not even mad.
So we're just going to soften that. I'm just going to do it on the head. A bit of an ease or cushion. It just goes back a little bit. This head just moves back a little. So what we're going to do is just we set another key 4 frames down. And instead of moving this back a little bit to cushion it, we'll just move the one previous forward a little bit. And in between that, just a little bit of cushion there. And that's good enough for that. So let's go to the next move. So he goes into this next pose. Let's check it out.
I'm not even mad. I'm not even mad.
Not much to do here.
I'm not even mad.
I'm going to give it a little bit of drag on the wrist here. I'm going to delay the head a little bit as well. Alright, so let's just cushion this whole thing first. Set a key. Select the entire body. And just bring it back a little. Bring the arm back a little bit. Break the arm or the wrist. Bring the head back so it settles into place. And then I'm going to just drag this hand a little bit. So let's, in between that.
I'm not even mad. I'm not even mad.
Offset the head a little bit. Let's just see how that works out.
I'm not even mad. It's amazing. I'm not even mad. It's amazing.
That gives the head a feeling of weight a little
I'm not
bit.
even mad. It's amazing.
So that's pretty good for that
I'm not
move.
even mad.
You can refine that further, but we'll just leave that as it is. It's much better than blocked.
I'm not even mad. It's amazing.
Okay.
It's amazing.
So the last move,
It's amazing.
I like the anticipation, and you know what? I'm going to overshoot that, as if he just relaxes his body. We're going to have him squash down a little bit here. So let's give it 5 frames down for the settle, and we're not going to touch this key, this row of keyframes. We're going to adjust this one. So let's squash his whole body down. We'll fix those arms later in a moment. So let's just squash them all down here as if he just completely relaxed. So he just drops his body weight here. Okay, so we need to arc this arm down. So let's overshoot this arm a little since he drops it so hard. Just gonna bring that hand down. We'll stretch that arm a little bit. Bring it down a little. And we'll stretch this arm a little bit too. Alright, so let's in between this. Alright, classic tween. Here we go. So let's check it out.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing.
You know what? I'm actually pretty happy with that. So let's just fix that arm and we'll be done with it. Okay, so it's just the forearm and the hand. So let's get the forearm, let's get the hand, put our keys in between, up here, and we'll just fix those. Now we want to get a nice arc in this motion. Want to get that arm coming down in a nice arcing motion. So let's get that forearm first. We want to have an arcing motion, but we also want to have a little bit of drag on the hand. So, and it switches. So this is arm number 4 over here. So let's switch that. Let's switch it out. This is a quick movement, so we'll switch it out right in the middle. Just number 4. This is a good opportunity to turn on our onion skinning. Let's just look at the upper body. So I think we can actually use a different hand, something that shows us the palm a little bit more, as his hand is turning in from this hand here to this hand down at his side. So what we can do is maybe let's see if we can find a better hand. Okay, so you can see we have our arc. Get a bit of a drag in this hand. Let's see how it looks overall.
It's amazing.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so
It's amazing. It's amazing.
so overshoot doesn't always have to be something that stretches out or moves back or up. It can also be something that squashes down. So this overshoots because it settles. So he's overshooting down into a squash, and that's because he's dropping his arm and relaxing his body. Okay, I see a little bit of elbow breakage here, but I'll just leave that for now. You guys obviously make sure that everything links up together nicely. Animation can always be improved, but for now, I think this will work out just fine. So let's just watch the whole thing.
You pooped in the refrigerator, and you ate the whole wheel of cheese? How'd you do that? Actually, I'm not even mad. It's amazing.
Okay, that's fine. This is the point where you would fix the head. Once you're happy with all your animation and the timing especially, you have to go through and fix the head, all the head cymbals. So we're going to take a look here. On frame 1, it's at 22. Select the head, and it's at 24 here, so we have to change it to 22. And we'll do that for all the head keys. Most of these are going to be off. We shifted head keys around quite a bit. Okay, so we've matched up all the frame numbers for the head keyframes with the numbers, the instance numbers, and the properties. So we're done that. Let's just play it and see how that looks.
You pooped in the refrigerator, and you ate the whole wheel of cheese? How'd you do that? Actually, I'm not even mad. It's amazing.
Okay, so that's fine. Now it's time to do the facial animation. We've done the lip sync. We've done all the body animation, and now it's time for the facial animation. In our previous class, Acting 3 facial animation, we've already gone through how to change facial animation. So I'm not going to go through the entire animation here to do that. I'll do the first couple. There's a few things to point out that you should be aware of when you're doing facial animation on a moving character. The first thing that you probably already know is once you dive in to the head, so we're inside the head here where we have all the parts that we're going to animate. Our lip sync's already here, but you can see that he's not moving around. He doesn't move, so we don't know what position he's in while we're in here animating the face. So we have to dive out and do each move individually. So we'll scrub over the first move, and we just sort of have to remember where we're at. So we know that there's an imaginary dog here, so we want to keep his eye direction looking down. So let's just focus on that for now. Okay, so from frame 32 to the frame 34, he moves his head up, and now he's looking in this direction. But we want to keep him looking down. So from frame 32 to 34, we should animate his eyes looking down. So let's just go in and do that. So 32, let's set a key on his pupil. Grab the other pupil. Set another key. We'll go 2 frames down the timeline. Set 2 more keys on each pupil. Okay, and then we'll just select both pupils and move them down. And you'll notice, you probably noticed it while you were doing facial animation, that the pupils go outside the eye lines here. So you just want to make sure on this particular character that we don't do that. So just keep them inside here. This is one thing that I really don't like about Flash, is you have to bounce back out to see what you did. So now we can see the eye direction did move down. Actually, right from the beginning he should be looking down. So let's go back inside the head. And we'll dive back out and take a look. So that looks okay. I think we're going to do a blink here. So let's go in and select the eye. You have to select that black rim around the eye if you remember from the other class. And let's set a key. So we'll select the symbol and we'll close the eye. We'll leave it closed for 2 frames. We'll set another row of keys. And now we'll start to open the eye. And then on the next frame we can have them completely open, so we'll set those back to 1. We know when the eye is open back up, we can shift the eyebrows. So let's go to this half open eye. There's the 2 eyebrow layers. So let's set a key there, right at the half open eye is. And let's move them up a little bit. Just start to get them moving. We can start to rotating. And I'll set a key right next to it. We could give it an extra. We can give it an in-between as well if you want. We'll just give him this a funny look for this dialogue. You pooped in the refrigerator. Give him a little concern at first. Looks like you kind of feel sorry for the dog's feelings, and then let's just check that out now. We'll dive back out and play it. Sometimes you can lead with the eyebrows and then have the eyes adjust, or sometimes you can blink and have the eyebrows pop up after. Okay, so let's check that out.
You pooped in the refrigerator.
Now the great thing is we've already done one blink, we can just copy them over. Be mindful where you put your blinks. A lot of times you want to blink on an eye direction change just to hide the pupil from moving. So when the eye closes, the pupil moves underneath it, and we don't see the eye direction change. But sometimes you also want to change the eye direction with the eye open. And sometimes we refer to those as eye darts. So you can dart the eyes back and forth. Depends if the character is nervous. You really have to think about what you're doing with the eyes, because that helps to convey to the audience what the character is thinking.
You pooped in the refrigerator.
Also, too, that little pause there after he says you pooped in the refrigerator, he sort of pauses for a minute. He's thinking, so it's a hold, and it's a very valuable hold because it gives the audience a moment to see that the character is thinking about what's going on in the room and what he just said and what's happening with the dog. So just that little blink just helps to convey to the audience that the character is he's thinking about it. Be careful not to add too many blinks in your scene. Then it looks like it's just windy and something's wrong with his eyes. He just got something caught in his eye, or if you over blink. Sometimes you can do a double blink. People do that sometimes. Just did some quick facial animation. I'm expecting you guys to do a little bit more detailed facial expressions, put more thought into it, change up the eyebrows where you need to or where you can.
You pooped in the refrigerator. And you ate the whole wheel of cheese? How'd you do that? Actually, I'm not even mad. It's amazing.
Alright, well that actually worked out pretty good. But let's see what you guys can come up with. Even if you go in and create a new eyebrow with the inside of the eyebrow just curled up a little bit, and just get a little bit more expression out of them that way. Just something very small like that can squeeze out a little bit more facial expression. In the next class, we're going to do a 2-character sequence where they're going to be acting and reacting off one another. So see you in the next class. Thanks.